What's going on, guys? It's Tony, Urban Girl Scout Media, living the dream as always, and coming to you today with a special off the rails. This one I'm going to talk about the big R, racism. It's going to be a controversial one, hopefully. So I want to just give a little bit of insight on my stance on racism. First off, you hear this term every now and again, and this is always one of the first things I think about with racism. The second is a story I'm going to share a little bit later. But one of the first things I always think about is when people say it's alive or dead. Racism is an emotion, it's an opinion, it's a feeling. It's not something that can be alive or dead. And I think that quantifying it as such actually is insulting. Just going to throw that out there. I think it's insulting to those who have endured and who fight against it. I think it's insulting because you generally only talk about it if you believe it's something that can be alive or dead. You only talk about it when it's convenient for your cause, whether that's trying to prove that we are a racist society, like it or not, or trying to ignorantly say that racism isn't real and that it's made up. Or you hear people talk about how affirmative action is, this horrible thing, and it's just racism being alive or dead allows you to only use it when it's convenient for you. So here to me is what racism is. Racism is not when you have police officers abusing their power against the African American community, or fear towards any ethnic group or anything like that. Like massive, that's not the true racism that we need to address. The true racism is the day-to-day moments that happen in our lives. And one of them is a story that, this is a very uncomfortable story, but it's one that I've always kept with me because this was one of the first times where I truly believe that I saw like the worst kind of racism. And it wasn't on TV. It wasn't some huge news story. It's the stuff that we do day to day that some of us think just isn't a big deal. So let me tell you guys this story. Many, many years ago, I started one of my first jobs. We were opening a restaurant, and there was new staff orientation, and there was a bunch of us there. This was about 18 months after 9/11. Okay, so that shows you how old I am. So we are sitting there, and I know one, maybe two people in this entire room of like 30 people. But this dude I'm sitting next to was a little angry, a little frustrated. And we had a person talking to all of us. I believe he was a district manager, and he was of Middle Eastern descent. And this guy who was sitting next to me, he was around my age, but it was just an angry guy. You could just tell because he literally said to his buddy who was sitting next to him, "Why do we have to sit and listen to this sand nigger?" Now, I hate using the N-word like that, but that to me was one of the most atrocious acts of racism that I've seen with my two eyes in person, not on TV, not heard secondhand, none of that. And the city I grew up in, as a teenager, was known for being a little racist. I heard the N-word more than once. So why is that so much worse? Because it happened so much more. And because when those happen, it's easy for us to ignore it, because if you don't see it, you don't know about it. But if you have this conscious opinion that, hey, when people talk like that, I'm going to tell them that's not okay. Because that kind of talk and that kind of rhetoric and that kind of attitude is actually what leads us to the worst things, like police officers abusing their power, or negative stereotypes, or, just look at America's history of racism. So that's my take on it. I'm not as worried about the big moments because I think those are going to happen one way or the other. I think that you can't only talk about racism, though, when someone's been hurt, when something massively huge and negative is taking place and you just can't ignore it. I don't think you can talk about it right then and there. I think you have to talk about it now when we don't have maybe necessarily drastic events going on, but we do have people in power who hate certain ethnicities. We do have hundreds upon thousands upon millions of people across the country who show signs of racism, and they're never held accountable for it. Now, on that same token, and something that I want to absolutely point out, is that when you talk about racism, you can't talk about you have to talk about the opinion, not the person. I may not agree with someone for being a racist, but I'm not going to attack them and make them feel like I'm better than them. Because then it becomes more than just an opinion about a certain ethnicity of people. It becomes a topic of you're attacking me and my personal beliefs. So I think that you have to go for an opinion, not the core of the person. And also remember that you're not going to change everybody's mind. You're not going to be able to, control everything. So I think understanding that, hey, we can agree to disagree. I personally don't see why having equality for everybody is a bad thing, but that's just me. So there you go, guys. There's my little rant on racism. And why I think that it's important to pay attention to the smaller moments, not just these large moments. Why I think that you can't quantify it as alive or dead, and why I think that you have to be careful of how you address someone who is or is not on one end of the spectrum on that, because again, I think rules of debate, you need to respect the person, but you can attack the opinion. Isn't that how it goes? Something like that. I don't know. Anyways, thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like the video, or if you like what you're hearing, make sure you're following the channel, subscribe to us, share the video. I mean, I don't give a damn. Just do something to help us out, trying to make this big time.